All right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV Daybreak. We're talking about forest and livelihoods. The world is marking International Day of Forest on the 21st of March. That's on Sunday. Now, this is important because there's many advantages of having forests around us. We're yet to achieve the 10% forest covers by my latest research, but we'll find out from Julius Kamau, who's the Chief Conservator of Forest, Kenya Forestry Services, with us here in studio. Thanks for making time for us,
Welcome.
CCF. So why is the International Day of Forest important to Kenyans? Because there's always some kind of misunderstanding. People think forest just belongs to you and not for the rest of the people. Yes. Why is this important to Kenyans?
Thank you, Trevor, to host me this morning. I would say that this is a very special day. It's a special day because it's a day that nations and the communities of nations and the people are reminded the importance of all type of forest to their lives and their livelihood. The United Nations General Assembly in 2012 did proclaim the 21st of March every year to be the International Day of Forests. And therefore, as we look at it from the nation perspective, this country, on Sunday, 21st, it will be the International Day of Forest. And it's a day where countries are encouraged to be able to undertake local, national, and international efforts about forests in the globe. And therefore, as a country, some of the activities that will be taken, some of the efforts to be taken, is like what we are doing this morning, creating awareness and celebrating this day, and creating awareness in terms of forests and their people. The theme this year, every year, the collective partnership forum on forests, which is led by FAO, normally declares and defines the theme for every year. This year, the theme is forest restoration, a path to recovery and well-being. And I think it speaks and resonates very well with the current times that we are living in, the during COVID and post-COVID recovery. That's why I talk about recovery and well-being of people. Because when you talk about healthy forests, you talk about healthy people. Forests also are known to shield us from future pandemics. Forests also host various sources of medicine as we speak. And therefore, every tree counts.
What is the current forest cover? Because we've always tried to achieve the 10% forest cover. Do we know what the current forest cover is?
It's good to start by saying that the Constitution of Kenya do commit this country and the people to achieve 10% tree cover. And it has been a journey, but by estimation, we could be at 7.2%, meaning we have about 2.8% to go to be able to reach the 10% recover. And basically, it is not only the government that can be able to do so. It requires all the Kenyans to come together. It's a personal, individual, small actions that will make us collectively to get there as a country by 2022. And remember, this target initially, through Vision 2030, was expected to be achieved by 2030. But His Excellency the President, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, brought that target ahead to 2022. And therefore, what it means is that we have to do more than we could have done to attain that percentage.
That is next year. So how then do we bridge this 2.8% gap? What is your plan?
The plan I have as Kenya Forest Service and also as a government is that we are happy that there is a national strategy now that has been approved by the government. The national strategy on 10% recover, and it set out very clear milestones on what needs to be done by the government and by the people of this country. And I can say that, yes, it is a task that we must be able to embrace ourselves to do. A lot has been happening, and a lot will happen. And that's why, basically, we need to rally Kenyans and be able to break it down so that sometimes when people hear forest, they see government, they see Kenya Forest Service. But remember, the greatest potential for this country, it is to increase trees on farm. This is where people live, in their own landscapes. And I think the Kenya Forest Service continue to work through its own program. We are happy that we have done quite a bit in terms of reviving our tree nurseries, because without tree seedlings, then you can't talk about restoration. But also, I know there are many, many Kenyans who are, and we encourage them to plant trees and grow trees on their farm for their own lives and livelihood. And if we did that, all of us together, for example, if every Kenyans, the 45 million of Kenyans, were to plant each of them 45 trees we are there already. We will have planted more than 22 billion trees in this country.
It's that disconnect between livelihoods and trees that doesn't seem to come out very strongly, because a Kenyan is probably wondering, why should I plant a tree?
Exactly.
Why not let KFS do it? So why are the trees so important to them?
Let me break it this way, and we learn from each other as a country. We are experiencing a very serious pandemic. That's a COVID-19. And you would break the trees, they breathe out, or they make oxygen, the trees themselves. And this is the oxygen that we breathe in. So if we have to live, then trees must live. And therefore, that is the very, very basic connection between human life and the trees. That if you plant a tree, you are actually breathing in life to someone somewhere. And therefore, that's why when you cut a tree, imagine that actually is like you're collapsing one of the lungs of someone. Because without oxygen, of course we are not. And oxygen, by the way, we may take it for granted. Right now we're breathing that air. But the moment you require support for that air, it's very, very expensive. And therefore I believe that as a country, we have to really interrogate our own selves and ask, what is it that we must do to make this life better for us and for other people? I think was something that also we taught ourselves, and during this period, this time, that when things were very rough in this country, there was lockdown, people could not move out of their house, times were difficult. We realized, actually, in our green spaces especially, Kenyans trooped in thousands to seek solace and to reconnect with nature. And I think we should not forget that we need to really protect our forest resources, our green spaces, grow trees on farm, for our own lives. I also say, as a constitution, a right to water, to clean and safe water, is a right by itself. In this country, most of the water that we take is basically from our catchment areas. Most of our catchment areas are in forest jurisdiction. If we don't protect and conserve this forest, then as a country, we don't have safe and clean water to drink. In any case, one of the strategies that has made this country survive through the pandemic is washing hands. It means we have to rely on water. And therefore, water is life. And therefore, we must, as a country and as people, be able to engage in that conversation. Further, we talk about livelihood. During COVID-19, people were under pressure. They were struggling to get something to eat and to drink. As a Kenya Forest Service, we did lay some strategies that actually came in to assist Kenyans, even those difficult times. When we establish our forest plantations in our forest jurisdiction, we normally employ a process called, or a system called PELIS, where we allow the farmers or the communities next to our forest, who are mostly vulnerable, to come in and be able to help us to replant these areas, but also grow crops, which again serves us very good for food security for these communities. So, and also again, we have the Kazi Mtaani, we had the youths providing employment during that difficult time through tree planting during the last season. And I believe as we go to the wrong range, as we brace ourselves to planting trees, it also provides opportunities for many young people and, different varied community women and men to be able to access employment.
I like how you've related the issue of oxygen and also post-COVID-19 and the way people struggle to breathe at some point. But what is also the role of forest in mitigating against climate change and natural disasters? We've seen landslides in certain areas, we've seen flooding in certain areas. It is that connection that I'm still looking for, because most people can't see the reason why this is important.
I think there's a forestry and forests and trees play a very central role. In fact, I would say they are like the shock absorbers and the stabilizers for our natural ecosystem. One, if we don't have or we don't restore our degraded forest ecosystems, what it means when it rains, there's runoff. Runoff causes floods. Floods becomes and cause loss of property and life, and therefore they become a humanitarian crisis. Again, when you are exposed to a lot of drought, it means that you have lost the vegetation cover. And when the rain comes, again, there is a lot of runoff. But if you have a stable forest and a health forest, it means when you have the rains, during the rainy seasons, this forest works like a sponge. It absorbs all the water in the catchment. And therefore, it doesn't allow much of the water to go as runoff. Because runoff go to the Indian Ocean, you never recover that water again. But it allows water to be absorbed in what we call the underground water system. And now what happens when it's become dry and when people require that water, it is slowly discharged into the ecosystem through our water systems, the rivers and the lakes. When you destabilize that ecosystem, then you are swinging from drought to flood. And the government continue and would be then required to invest a lot of resources to be able to deal with the humanitarian crisis from drought and from floods. And I think if we have that understanding that forest is the one that stands in between floods and drought, not necessarily in entirety, but it's a very key sector that we must be able to work together to support and stabilize so that we are able to work together. I also want to go to the farm of this subsistence farmer and to see what a tree can do on their own farm. The reason why we need to plant trees is also to conserve the wealth that we have in our farm. This is soil. Soil is invaluable. You know how much valuable Kenyans consider land. If we don't then put in conservation measures through agroforestry system, through planting of bamboo and other conservation trees along the riparian areas, through planting trees along the weed breaks, then and across the contours on our farm, then continuously farmers will continue losing the topsoil into the Indian Ocean, desilting our water and dam systems and our lakes and our water body, which is very expensive again, and compromises our capability to generate hydropower. But more so, it denies the farmer the productivity nature for them to sustain their livelihood through subsistence agriculture. That's how important and how close trees are to ourselves.
This doesn't sound to me like something that only KFS should be doing. Other public institutions and government agencies and private sector should also jump into this, right? What is their role, per se?
In fact, one of the things that I think I would really appreciate, and what His Excellency the President did direct, that every ministry, department, and agency of government must contribute 10% of their CSR budget towards tree growing. What that has done is that we have seen a lot of many ministries, department, and agencies of government coming to us and working together with us to collaborate with us and complement our efforts. Beyond that, as a Kenya Forest Service, we don't work alone. We have a very strong relationship with the county government. Remember, forestry is a devolved function. And as Kenya Forest Service deal with about 2.5 million hectares of public forest, we also support the county to conserve and manage about 1.7 million hectares of forest. And the county also has a responsibility to engage with the farmers through extension systems and services to ensure that on the farms we have trees. And again, that's how we have a nexus with the agriculture, which is again run by the county. And therefore, and also remember, the Ministry of Interior, especially at the county level and every level, they are the coordinators on matters of environment. And therefore, we as a country must work together with the government, the county government, the private sector, and the public.
But where does the challenge come then when it comes to forest conservation? Because you're painting a very direct relationship between forest and people's livelihoods. But there seems still to be a challenge where people don't seem to understand this. What is the main challenge? Where does it lie?
The main challenge is people thinking that there's someone else's problem. Everyone think, when you talk about tree planting, at individual level, someone thinks it's someone else who should plant trees. Perhaps it's KFS who should plant trees. But I think the thing I would want to make a statement today is that any person who plant a tree, knowing very well that they may not enjoy the shade of that tree, have started beginning understanding the meaning of life. Because most of us who live today, we are cutting trees and using them for firewood and timber, trees that we never planted ourselves. The question we must ask ourselves is, what will our children and our grandchildren do if we don't plant and invest today for them, if not for ourselves? And therefore, it must become a personal conversation. And that's why I believe this discussion this morning is one of the best strategies to speak to Kenyans, increase their awareness, and possibly, I believe, after the end of the show, they will have a better understanding and the reason why they should have a conversation. Wherever you have built, plant some trees. Where you are farming, plant some trees. Wherever you are, grow trees, both within our public forest, in the private farms, anywhere. Let us grow trees, because every tree counts.
Because that was actually my next conversation with you, the quickest way to replenish and restore our forests, because there are many people who are talking about, here on Twitter, let's see, I have Engineer Lazaro Kanyamboku saying encroachment in forest demarcated areas is the main cause of degradation of our water catchments and human-wildlife conflict. Is that true from where you stand? Encroachment, is that the biggest issue?
I would say it's not the main, it's part of. And that's why I said it's a personal conversation. You see, it's possible for me to look at it that way. So therefore, I remove the responsibility from myself. And that is a dangerous territory. We must say, what is it that I can do myself to make a change that I want to see in this country? And one is beginning in planting trees on our own spaces that we do own, and where we can make sure that we plant trees that speak to our own needs. I can tell you that we also have a conversation on where the trees can become part of livelihoods. For example, fruit trees, mango trees, macadamia, avocado. These are all trees. They play critical ecological, critical ecological importance, but also they are to our own life. Yeah. The other thing is that when you plant a tree which you can expect benefit, both tangible and intangible, then also you are at our own mandate to be able to protect that tree to survive. However, I want to say, as a Kenya Forest Service and government, I can tell you we are very happy as we speak because of the reclamation. He has spoke about degraded and encroached area. It is true. Yeah. There are some very, very many public forests that have been encroached, but which, as a Kenya Forest Service and government and the Ministry of Environment, have worked together to reclaim those areas. One of them is, for example, Chapter East, that is Mount Elgon Forest, where from June last year to December, we were able to reclaim about more than 4,000 hectares of forest land that were encroached. And today, as we speak, it's healing, and we are happy about that. The other good example is Keresia Forest, Rirogi, in Samburu County, where more than 50 years, people have been residing inside the forest. And after engaging with them, creating awareness of the importance of forest, they voluntarily decided to move from 2019 December, November. And we support them to move through provision of rollies. And as we speak today, about 30,000 hectares that was initially encroached now is healing, and we are happy. The last one is, for example, Mau, where, of course, about 14,000 hectares have been reclaimed. And we are happy because after that reclamation effort, and which we believe Mau is a very critical ecosystem, the Queen's Commonwealth Canopy, and we can say comfortably that the Mau Forest Complex has been admitted to the Queen's Commonwealth Canopy. This is through a communique between Her Majesty the Queen to the Excellency the President of the Republic on January 15, 2020, admitting it, considering it as a very critical conservation area, not only for this country, the region, and globally. And I think that is something that we need to be proud of as a country.
All right. Timothy Mudeki on Twitter is saying, this is excellent and we are watching. How do youth groups partner with the Kenya Forest Service in the exercise? We have youth groups that are planting trees in Kitui County from the 3rd of April. Can we work together? How are you partnering with other agencies and other youth groups that are also trying to ensure that they plant trees?
I think one of the things that we have leveraged as a Kenya Forest Service is to develop, explore, nurture, and grow partnership. Today, more than ever before, Kenya Forest Service is open to partnership. And I am happy that he asked from Kitui, because in every county, we have an ecosystem conservator who is in charge of that county. If you go to our station, there is a forest station manager. And the youth can partner in many ways. One, we encourage them to actually invest in tree nursery investment. As we speak today, Kenya Forest Service is registering all private nurseries. And we want to have a database of the private nurseries, so that if the government at one point want to secure and buy seedlings, if our partners want to buy seedlings, we can direct them to these nurseries, so that it also become a source of livelihood to these people. Beyond that, we are encouraging the youths to also partner with the schools where they school from. Those schools have land, they have areas they can interact with, they can mentor those children by growing trees. More than that, in our public forest, we have degraded areas. And therefore, the youths can come as a group. Now we have a adopt forest framework where they come and engage with us, and they can adopt a certain section of our forest, and we grant them access to it, and they will be able to not only to plant, but nurture and maintain those trees for a period of 3 to 5 years. Then that forest revert back to us, and they go to another area. So those are some of the models that we are using to engage.
All right. Lubanga Makanji is saying, ask the conservator to tell us the contribution of forestry to the national GDP in monetary terms. Can this be quantified really in monetary terms?
Yes, I could say. We have not been, and as a country, managed to do what you call total economic valuation. But if you look at the productive part of forest, that is the wood product itself, contribute 3.6% of the GDP. But that does not include the ecological services that forests provide. It doesn't include the provision for water that supports our agriculture, that support our energy. It doesn't include the issue of carbon sequestering, and which actually help us to have a healthy environment. It doesn't provide for the value of forest towards health. It doesn't provide for the value of forest in changing the climate and allowing us to have productive agriculture. If we can value all these other ecological services that forest is able to give, I can tell you most likely the GDP contribution would possibly more than double what we are calling about the 3.6%.
Boaz is saying, how is it possible for you to provide 45 tree seedlings to every Kenyan? Do we have enough?
I think Kenya, as I said, is a collective responsibility. As we speak today, as a Kenya Forest Service, in our nurseries as we speak, we have about 40 million tree seedlings.
Yeah.
We are also aware that in the private herds, for the nursery that have registered with us, they have more than that. And therefore, it tells you the power is with the people. Yeah. And therefore, even in our own individual farms, our own local ways, it is possible to nurture trees. Even wildlings that grow within the farmland, we can be able to nurture them. And therefore, as Kenya Forest Service, we can provide as much we can. Yeah. The county government should come in also, other partners, and also individual level, in schools and other areas. Let us have a culture of setting up mini nurseries that can complement our efforts.
Pascal Opio says, what kind of trees would KFS recommend to be planted? Are eucalyptus trees good?
I think it's a huge conversation. Yeah. But I think the issue is site matching. Where do you plant it? Eucalyptus tree is not bad in any way. It only becomes bad if you plant it in the water catchment areas. I have seen, for example, as we speak today, tea industry is one of the biggest lead in the economy, one of the economic foreign exchange earner, for example, in the western part of Kenya. And tea industry, as I know it, they are relying on eucalyptus to be able to do what we call the curing of tea, basically, in their boilers. From 1942 up to today, they are doing so. So the conversation here is that eucalyptus itself is not a bad tree. Yes, it consumes a lot of water, but also grow very fast. And I know there are very many Kenyans also who have been relying on eucalyptus tree for transmission poles. When you see electricity, connectivity, the last mile, dependent a lot on the eucalyptus poles. So we cannot really condemn the tree. It has a very great economic value, both to the government and the people of this country. But we must tell Kenyans, plant it where it doesn't have an impact on our water catchment areas.
Okay. So that means they have to look for an expert first before I decide to just plant random trees on my farm.
Exactly. And Kenya Forest Service, in the county level, we normally have a technical advisor. And every forest station you walk in, you get an advice to be told what kind of tree species would you want to plant. In some areas, you plant conservation trees on the riverines, the bamboo, and other tree species. On woodlots, you can do eucalyptus woodlot on the higher side of it. You can do fruit trees, basically, and you can do also agroforestry tree species. There's a combination of many trees, matrix that we can be able to employ on people's landscapes.
Okay. Andrew Bogoli is saying, what is the status of sustainable forest certification, FSC standard in Kenya?
I think Kenya Forest Service is currently aware that we need to have a certification process, and we are engaging with the Steward Council, Forest Steward Council in Kenya. We have engaged with them, and actually we are in the preliminary stages of identifying some of the pilot areas that we can pick to develop this certification, and therefore it's something that Kenya Forest Service is taking seriously.
Okay. And we have Daro Kibet, says these guys are doing a good job in Cheptais. I encourage Kenyans to plant more trees as is done in Kisii County. Do you have a system where you're trying to ensure that each county reaches a particular target? Because then it would be easier even for you to map out and know what is our forest cover.
Yes. Yes, we normally, as a Kenya Forest Service, engage with the Council of Governors through our quarterly bilateral meetings. And remember, we have signed with most of the counties, more than 30 counties, what we call transition implementation plan. It's a commitment that actually spells out the county responsibility in tree growing and tree planting. One of the things, because the Constitution also commits Kenya Forest Service to build the capacity of the county government to managing forest resources. One of the things that we are working towards with our Forest Information System lab is actually to try to map out the tree cover for each of these counties, so that we are able to communicate and create a kind of competition between counties, and also attribute leadership of various governors towards forest conservation. I think it will be very good for every governor who goes in leadership know that my county is at this level in terms of tree cover. And by the time that governor leaves, he can look back and say, I have been able to move this county from this percentage of tree cover to this percentage of tree cover. So we are actually working towards mainstreaming forest conservation within the governance structures of the county government and within their planning and designing of their program and financing.
What do you think is the role of forests now post-COVID-19? Everyone is talking about the recovery. What will be the role of forests now?
I think the role of forest cannot be gainsaid. I think it's very, very serious. As you would imagine, and we were happy as a Kenya Forest Service to host His Excellency the President on last year World Environment Day in the Arboretum. It's one of the green spaces. We have seen people who want to come to the green spaces to reconcile with nature, to meditate and just connect with nature. That is one. Two, we forestry in terms of tree planting, if we have to move the country to the 10% tree cover, we require very serious and well-crafted tree planting program and tree growing program. That means there is opportunity for the youths to be able to invest in nurseries in terms of raising quality seedlings, and that will actually mean employment and also green job for them to be able to move together. When you look at our forest, we have community forest associations in every neighborhood of our forest station. And as we speak today, we have about 255 community forest associations. All of them have a nursery somewhere. And we are trying to, even the seedlings they are raising, the demand is higher than that. And therefore, also, we are changing the lives and the livelihood of millions of Kenyans through the formation of the CFAs. And I believe, to me, that is the way to go. Three, we also want to, the kazi mtaani that we have, the youths, should also be engaged in planting trees along avenues, our roads, water bodies, in our forest, and elsewhere. That, again, is a possibility. The other system that we have is restoration of our plantation areas. I said we provide small pieces of growing areas for farmers and for the members of the CFA to grow their crop. At the same time, and we are saying it is tree first. So you help us plant the tree first, then you grow your crop. By the time you harvest, the tree has grown. You have gotten your beans, you have gotten your potatoes, you have fed your family, you have been able to take your kid to school, and again, you are able also to support us in terms of growing our forest. And therefore, there is a lot we can do. Remember, as I said, there are many environmental services. We talk about water. If we have water, our economy will grow. If we have water, we have electricity. If you have water, we have agriculture. And therefore, forestry should not be looked at mainly as a direct beneficiary, but also a multiplier and a trigger and a foundation to the thriving of other economic sectors, like tourism. Like you talk about the Mara Basin. If we don't conserve Mau, then the tourism sector is collapsed.
CCF, as we wind up on this, what are we doing as the world marks International Day of Forests as a country? What are we doing? And what are you most proud of? What would you say is the one thing you want to be known for? What have you achieved?
I think one thing that I really am proud of is, first of all, the forest discourse has attracted public interest at the national level. That's why I think we are discussing this today, this morning. That is one thing, because we need to rally Kenyans to walk with us through that journey. The other thing is, we have been able to reclaim forest land, which was encroached in Mau, in Cheptais, Mount Elgon, and Samburu, and other areas. And we have been able to breathe life back to these degraded areas and for the benefit of the country. I think the other thing also is our nurseries. If you go to our forest stations across the country, we have rejuvenated our tree nurseries, and therefore there are seedlings available for planting. Again, also as a Kenya Forest Service, we are doing serious reforms to ensure that we have efficient delivery of our effective mandate. And finally, is a partnership. One thing I will be proud of is the way we have opened up our space and to engage with the various partners, ministries, department, agencies of government, council of governors, and the counties, the private sectors, the schools, and the communities. It is, I think, for the first time, we have a serious engagement with the people of Kenya.
And are we having an event? Are we planting trees this time? What is the plan going forward?
Thank you as a country, because we say this day help us to celebrate first and also do some certain efforts that will be able to help us create awareness. And for this, we are very happy that our national event for this day, IDF, that's on Sunday, will be in Loitoktok Forest Station. It will be officiated and graced by Honorable Karaiko Tobiko, and who is the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Environment and Forestry. Beyond that, we will also have other events across the county. All our counties will be celebrating this day by planting trees and holding events. And we are asking Kenyans to be able to join in one of these activities across the region, across the country. And those who are able to join us in Loitoktok, and Trevor, I would want to invite you to represent, to come and join us in Loitoktok as we mark this day. We want to really plant trees on that day, but mostly because of the weather, we possibly would start off by a few trees. But again, we are also taking that as a setting the stage and the spirit of the country to go towards the mood of tree planting as we now join into the long rains. And I would ask that Kenyans don't allow that raindrop to go to waste. Plant a tree, because where every tree counts, and where there's a tree, there's life.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius Kamau, Chief Conservator of Forest at the Kenya Forest Service there, speaking to us about the International Day of Forest on 21st. Listen, this is our collective responsibility. That's why I had him here to talk to us about forest, because until we ensure that trees out there, we will essentially be killing the future generation. It's our role as a people as well. It's not just them as the Kenya Forest Service. It's also our responsibility. So listen, there's a lot going on. Machakos senatorial by-elections are still happening. Let me cross over there. Speak to Sam Gituku, who is joining us live there to find out what the latest from the ground is. Sam, what is the latest from where you are?
Right, good morning, Trevor. It's been 14 hours since the polls closed yesterday at 5 p.m. and by this morning, most of the constituency returning officers have been able to conclude the process of tallying the results, and they have been filing them to the county returning officer. So far, we know that at least 5 constituencies of Matungu, Yatta, Masinga, and Mwala, and they are continuing now to present those results to the county returning officer, because this is where we are, the county tallying center, where the process of now getting to re-announce those results, like I said in our report on Wednesday, it was going to be such a clerical job, because what the returning officer is doing here at the county level is taking the results from every constituency. For instance, if it's Machakos Town, which has 213 polling stations, what he's doing is that he's getting the results from each of the 213 polling stations and announcing them afresh here, so that they can be tallied by his clerks, and then again compare with what has been tallied by the county returning officer, a constituency returning officer, in what is called the Form 38B. And so once those results have been compared, then that is when that is going now to post them on the big screen at the front. And looking at that big screen, so far there's only one constituency that has been posted, reporting about 13,300 votes for Agnes Kavindu. So with that, then it shows that we have 7 more constituencies to go, so that the county returning officer can satisfy himself that whatever has been done by his officers at the lower level is tallying with what they have indicated. But so far, we have been able to get some results from 5 constituencies, which I want to just read a summary of how many those votes are. Obviously, Agnes Kavindu from the Wiper Party appears to be in the lead so far out of the 5 constituencies, reporting about 63,732 votes, total votes. And then for Gengele, Arbanas from the UDA party is following her with 11,492, meaning that out of those 5 constituencies, Agnes Kavindu is clearly in the lead with more than 80% of the votes that have been counted. And then also for Mutua Katuku, remember that Mutua Katuku withdrew from the race quite late in the day, and there are some 999 people who voted for him in this election, despite having withdrawn from this process, Trevor.
So, Sam, you know, one of the biggest issues that everyone has been talking about is the turnout. How is it looking like so far?
Well, on average, out of the 3 constituencies that have been able to look at their voter turnout, it appears that it's on the average of 22–23%, meaning that out of the 620,000 registered voters in this Machakos County, then if you had to say that about 20% are the ones who will have come out to vote, then it might end up at just over 120,000 people that will have come out to vote. But this is also reflected in the kind of results that they're receiving, that Agnes Kavindu is getting 13,000 votes out of a constituency with more than 80,000 registered voters. So it's been pretty low. You don't know why this is the case, but there's that suspicion of voter apathy, bearing in mind that one of the candidates, Mutua Katuku, who has been seen as a big contender in this exercise, pulled out last minute. He may have disappointed some of his supporters, who therefore saw that there's no need of getting out to come and vote. So that voter apathy, despite knowing that in by-elections in Kenya, in the history of by-elections, we don't have a very positive voter turnout, but this one in Machakos County has been remarkable, Trevor.
What is the impact of this, Sam, to the Ukambani politics, so to speak? Because there was Wiper there, there's Mendeleo Chap Chap, there seems to be some power struggle there. What is the impact of this result?
It's hard to say yet, but obviously already you can start seeing there's some disquiet between Wiper Party and the Maendeleo Chapchap. Yesterday we were speaking to the governor of Machakos, who is the party leader of Maendeleo Chapchap, and he was trying to explain the reason behind them deciding that they are going to withdraw their candidate Mutua Katuku from the race. And he says they did not do it for the Wiper Party. It's not for the love of the party, but they did it for the sake of the president, who had appealed to them to be in a position to ensure there is some level of unity. But Mutua Katuku says, that, or rather Governor Mutua says that actually Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka was adamant on making sure that his candidate, who is Agnes Kavindu, wins this election. So it has not cured that question of unity that the president may have been looking for, but obviously having, because the indications are that Agnes Kavindu will win this election, so it might sort of embolden the Wiper Party that they have actually backed this seat, but also it's not necessarily greatly consequential, bearing in mind that the voter turnout is pretty low. So even if she becomes the winner, with a voter turnout of less than 25%, you cannot really say that it is such a strong signal that Wiper Party is strong within this, especially within Machakos County, knowing that even how people voted for the different positions in 2017, you'll see that a governor came from Maendeleo Chapchap, a senator came from CCU, the woman representative came from the party that is Wiper Party, and then out of 8 MPs, Trevor, there were 4 only from the Wiper Party. All the others were either coming from Maendeleo Chapchap, Jubilee, or Muungano Party, Trevor.
But then again, like you mentioned, some nationally does it have an impact either? Because then we've seen people like Mutula Kilonzo say that the reason the other parties were withdrawing their candidates was not so much because of the Ukambani unity, but was more about sensing defeat.
Well, that's debatable. Remember that in this election, the sort of campaigning we saw in areas of Kabuchai and Matungu was not as, we have not seen such kind of heated interest in this election in Machakos. And you recall that Kalonzo Musyoka was moving together with Gideon Moi of KANU, with Musalia Mudavadi of ANC, as well as Moses Wetangula from Ford Kenya, and even Moses Wetangula saying that this is the time that Machakos needs to raise Kalonzo Musyoka to the amazing grace. So we don't know whether that amazing grace has been achieved, because they have not been able to rally the members, the people of Machakos to come out in large numbers to really stamp the authority of the Wiper Party. So we do not know whether it is going to help the Wiper Party, looking at that turnout. But then again, looking at the larger picture of national politics, it has not still it hasn't emboldened that coalition of those 4 political parties, Gideon Moi, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, and one Kalonzo Musyoka, to the extent that they can say that we are forced to reckon with, especially in this region. So nationally, we'll have to wait and see, but you cannot say that that alliance has really entrenched themselves in the minds and hearts of the people of Machakos, and greatly in Ukambani.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Sam Gituku there with a brilliant analysis of what's going on in Machakos right now. It's a senatorial by-elections. It's happening as we speak. The results are trickling in. He's standing by for the latest in case we have the final results declared by IEBC. Sam will definitely be there to give you the